You're live.
Thank you. Having reached the hour of 7 o'clock, I call to order this September 27th meeting of the Academic Standards Committee. Could we please go around and introduce ourselves?
Matt Federickson, IT Director. Mike Dorwart, School Director.
Sue Elliott, Assistant Superintendent.
Andy Sanko, Administrator on Special Assignment.
Barry Nesco, Director of K-12 Education. Joe Hidalgo, School Director.
Jerry Grupp, School Director.
I'm Mary Ann McKee, School Director. We have a presentation tonight from Dr. Elliott about the Future Ready PA Index. And Dr. Elliott, as you present, would you prefer that we ask questions as they occur or wait until the end of your presentation?
I have some thoughts throughout to pause and ask questions where there's a shift in, we've now covered this topic. Now, before we move on to the next part of this, to ask if there are any questions. So.
Great, that's helpful for us. Thanks
Okay.
very much. Please go.
All right, so tonight's focus is on some of the changes that will be happening in Pennsylvania as part of the ESSA federal legislation and Pennsylvania Department of Ed's application and for the ESSA plan. So what we're going to talk about tonight is going to give you a high-level overview of Pennsylvania Department of Ed's ESSA plan, and then I'm going to give you an overview of the new public-facing report card, which is called the Future Ready PA Index, and then talk a little bit about what some possible implications are for us as a district as well as action steps.
Thank you. And please note we've been joined by School Director Denise Brooks.
ESSA stands for the Every Student Succeeds Act. So ESSA is the newest reauthorization of the 1965 ESEA Federal Act, which was the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which later became known more recently as the No Child Left Behind Act, or NCLB, and then was recently reauthorized and rebranded into ESSA. So ESSA is the new acronym for the 1965 original legislation. So looking just at comparing ESSA to the most recent reiteration of the ESEA Act, which was NCLB, it's like, how many acronyms can I use in existence? So some of the key differences in Pennsylvania. So No Child Left Behind, or NCLB, has accountability and reporting categories. If you remember, at one point in time, under NCLB, by the year 2014, every child was to be proficient, 100% proficient in math, science, and reading. And then that expectation changed. We had some reiterations of expectations under NCLB, and eventually we ended up with ESSA where we are today. The main accountability in Pennsylvania with NCLB was the School Performance Profile, or SPP. The School Performance Profile was used for federal accountability purposes, also included improvement designations, which most recently were called priority and focus schools. In early NCLB language, it was you were in school improvement, and could eventually, there were all levels of school improvement to take over. And then the SPP also served as the public-facing report card for communities about their school district. Additionally, with NCLB, the School Performance Profile was a part of educator effectiveness and evaluation as part of Pennsylvania's Act 82. So a school's SPP score, which was a single number score that a school would get every year, was part of a teacher's evaluation. It was one of the items in the formula that calculated that teacher's evaluation for the year. The shift in ESSA, we still have federal accountability, so the ESSA accountability is still there, and you'll see that a little bit as we go through the highlights of the changes in PE's ESSA plan. We still have improvement designations. Now they are CSI and TSI, comprehensive support improvement and targeted support improvement. We have a new public facing report card, which is the Future Ready PA Index, which you're going to see some screenshots of tonight because it's not live yet. And it supposedly was supposed to be live sometime in October. We'll see. We may not see it until later in October or possibly November. And with TDE's ESSA plan, we still have the school performance profile, but it's only used for educator effectiveness. And the reason for that is because Act 82 is still in place. And the school performance profile is written into law in Act 82 that it's an indicator in teacher performance, so it has to stay, but it is no longer public facing. It is just basically a score that schools get to use for educator effectiveness. And principals, yes. So those are kind of the main differences between those two. So PDE's ESSA plan was approved by the U.S. Department of Education in January of 2018. And like all of the reiterations of the 1965 Elementary and Secondary Education Act, this legislation is always linked to federal funds. So Title I, Title II, 3, 4, 5, and 7. So in essence, if you receive federal dollars, you are responsible for meeting the accountability requirements of the law. As a district, we receive Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV. Pennsylvania's plan set a long-term goal, and their target year for that long-term goal is 2030. So there are interim targets in between from today, this year, until 2030 for growth and expectations, which you'll see a little bit later in the presentation. What is different from the most recent reiteration of No Child Left Behind is the accountability for subgroups. So in the original legislation with No Child Left Behind and work at the state level, there was a lot of disaggregation of subgroups and tracking subgroups. As the state changed some of that work because of things that were happening at the federal level, as well as Race to the Top and some the other changes, instead of looking at all the different subgroups, what they did was put the subgroups into one lump of historically underperforming students. So that lumps are economically disadvantaged students, our English language learners, and our students with IEPs into one subgroup, and that was the only subgroup they looked at. They didn't look at ethnicity and race. ESSA has changed that, so now we are back to accountability by subgroup. Breaks out our students by their ethnicity, and then also by IEP, ELL, or L, as it now has changed as an acronym, and our economically disadvantaged students. Pennsylvania also, in their plan to federal government, added a piece to their plan that they're very proud of, the career pathways. So with a focus on career readiness, there is an added accountability measure in Pennsylvania's accountability factors or benchmarks that focuses on students learning and demonstrating proficiency with career readiness standards. In the ESSA plan, they did a lot of emphasis on STEM. However, in the actual accountability, there isn't a piece in the accountability that directly links to STEM learning or STEM activities. Of course, they developed a new public-facing report card, and the ESSA plan also has a focus on great leaders, which is really developing opportunities for learning for administrators, for principals, or folks who would be, leaders in districts to help to continue to build that understanding and the importance of an instructional leader in a building. So the long-term goals, in calculating the statewide long-term goals, what the focus is reducing by half the difference between the baseline score, whatever that baseline happens to be, and 100%. So if the baseline score is 80% proficient for whatever that group is, then between now and 2030, their interim goals map across from 80% to 90%. So the goal is to get to at least 90%. So it's no longer like in No Child Left Behind, where 100% of the kids have to be proficient by 2014. It's what's that mark in between 100% and where your starting point is. And we have baseline goals for all of our subgroups, and you'll see those a little bit later as well.
Is the baseline this year?
No. So it depends on the accountability measure. The state achievement, so the PSSA, Keystone, those baseline are 2015, so 2015. The career readiness, the absenteeism, and the English language proficiency, the state did not have benchmarks for those particular measures that they added to the plan. So we received new benchmarks for those. So those are just starting.
There's a benchmark for English language?
Yes.
I mean, isn't that a little odd when you have new students coming in? Like, I don't.
Yeah,
but
and I'll explain how that is, some of that's calculated, so you'll see that.
Over the course of the work, all students will have graduated.
No, I know, but if you had an influx of students in a particular year,
Right.
who didn't, have.
It has to do with their language level when they first enter the school and start in, if they're receiving services for English language development, where their language level starts, and the max amount of years for them to reach proficiency in language is 6 years.
6 years, I read.
But it depends on where they come in. So if I come in not at the beginning, 6 years would be someone who comes in who is basically non-English speaking and is at the beginner level. If I come in and I'm tested and I'm at a slightly higher level, I don't have 6 years to reach proficiency. I might have 3 or 4, depending upon where I fall.
I mean, yes, of course, it's new students coming in, but when you're talking about an entire district taking exam, whatever, it's one thing, the number of students that you're talking about, and that some of these subgroups is so small in relative terms that.
And there's an end count as well. Now, the English language proficiency is their proficiency on the test that the state uses, which is called the Vita Access for English language proficiency. So that particular accountability measure is not their performance on PSSA. They're actually a subgroup that we look at. It's a separate assessment. So these are areas of statewide long-term goals. So the achievement on the state assessment, graduation rate, we have long-term goals. We now have the goals for English language proficiency, and we also have goals for career readiness as well. Now, the career readiness, as far as the benchmark, we do not have interim goals for that at this time. We received, here's the benchmark for that particular accountability measure, and we don't have interim along the way at this point. So again, these are the measures, and I'll kind of highlight how they link to what we've had in the past. So advanced and proficient on state assessments, which would be PSSA and Keystone. Growth on state assessments would be PVOC, the Pennsylvania Valley Added Assessment, so we still use that. Graduation rate, they look at both the 4-year and 5-year cohort graduation rate. Chronic absenteeism was added as a accountability measure, English language proficiency, and career readiness. So this chart here shows you for English language arts and math what the 2030 goal is for proficiency by subgroup. So you'll see, for example, all student subgroup in English language arts by 2030 at the state level, 80.8% of those students should be proficient or advanced. And in math, 71.6. And then you go down the list, you see the different ethnic or racial groups that they're looking at and disaggregating, as well as the bottom 3 rows, students with disabilities, our English language learners, and our economically disadvantaged students. So these are the statewide goals.
So that means in 2015, the all students ELA was like 60%?
State average is somewhere around there, yeah. I'd have to go
But
back.
it's
and look,
50%
right.
of,
Yes. Mhm.
I was just observed, it's, each group has its own, which is either lower or higher than the all students.
Yes. Mhm. Here is the same chart only in science, the science goals for 2030. So again, you see variation in the different groups. Now, interestingly, when you think about these goals for English language arts, math, and for science, it's for both the PSSA and the system. So it's not separated out by the two different tests. This is the statewide goal. This is the goal for graduation rate for the 4-year and also 5-year. Again, you see differences in the Future Ready PA Index, which you'll see slides of in a little bit. Both of these will be reported. However, only the 4-year graduation rate is the one that counts as a federal accountability measure. But the state will show, they want to show some things in the Future Ready PA Index that aren't federal accountability. So there will be things in there, and I'll show you that. So we talked a little bit about English language proficiency. So the focus with English language proficiency is really gaining proficiency in English within 6 years or less, depending on the proficiency level. As I said earlier, the WIA access is the test that we use at the state level to measure that. It's administered every year in January or February, so right around that time of the year to students. The baseline for this was the 2016-17 because they did some updates to the test. Similar to with the PSSA, the baseline was 2015 because that was the first year of the new PSSA English Language Arts test and math test. So the end count for all of these subgroups is 20. So a school, and it's the school, so not a grade level, but it's that individual school must have an end count of 20. With the English language proficiency, it's the end count of 20 for the full academic year for two baseline years to count the data. So sometimes you've got kids moving in and out, and if they haven't been here for a full academic year, they don't count in the end count.
So that end count for schools like elementary schools is 3 for the test.
Yes.
Not 2.
Yes. Well, EL proficiency, kindergarten, kids are.
Yeah, I'm talking about.
Yeah, the other group is 3 through 6. So additionally, with English language proficiency, as with some of these other goals, there'll be, for EL, there'll be some individual student targets. That's not something necessarily that will be reported out on the Future Ready PA Index, but that's something that schools will get. Here's how this kid did on WIA, and here's their target. If they're going to be proficient in 6 years, here's where they need to be next year and where to get there. So the accountability measures, we have some newly established benchmarks. So there are things we don't have that are now serving as our baseline here. So the one piece with the English language proficiency, now we have the baseline for that. By 2030, 69.2% of L will meet, which L stands for English learners now. They'll meet the language proficiency. That is the WIA access, not the PSSA or the Keystone. The chronic absenteeism is being measured by attendance, regular attendance benchmark. We received that benchmark. We didn't have a baseline for that, but they were monitoring and collecting that data. So the minimal performance is 80.9%. Exceeds performance is 94.1%. That will later in the presentation make sense to you because things are color-coded on the Future Ready PA Index. So exceeds is green, or yes, no, blue. Exceeds is blue, minimal or meets is green, and then red is not. For the career standards benchmark or career readiness, minimal performance is 93%, and exceeding performance is 98%. That's my typing error, which I will fix. So that is PE's ESSA plan. Any other particular questions about the ESSA plan before we get into the Future Ready PA Index?
It's on the statewide, that's on the state level.
The
We
ESSA
already have a
plan,
graduation level higher than the goal.
those are the state goals, yes.
Doesn't really affect us, just that's really from the state level.
Correct. Well, we have to meet that goal.
Like in graduation,
yes.
continue to meet the goals.
Yes, we have to meet the goals, and we will also have interim goals as well that we need to meet.
And that's, I guess that's my question, which is, I anticipate we will make it. What if you don't make it? I mean, that's kind of an interesting question. The other thing is, I find it a little interesting and problematic, because we see here, we talk about diversity. So now do we have to focus on having certain groups exceed, or if we look at an average across our entire portfolio, and this would seem to be calling out certain groups that we actually have to have exceed the portfolio average, because they're targeted, that they have to have an 89, where the whole district only needs to achieve an 85. This group has to achieve an 89. I think it's, you know, we challenge diversity, and then we also look at it in terms of, in essence, reverse discrimination, because if we're not getting there, are we now going to apply extra resources for these groups so that they'll exceed?
Those do better than everyone else.
Yeah, and it's kind of, counterintuitive. I mean,
I guess I think that's one way that you can look at it. I guess the other way to look at it is many of these groups, when you look at the disaggregated subgroups, are typically underperforming groups. Now, there's some exceptions there that you see, like our students identified as Asian are performing higher. But for the most part, a lot of the groups identified as the subgroups are typically performing below the all students group or below the white students group. So the point is looking at growth of all students and making sure, and now this is the state goal, so we will get percentages of proficiency for all of our subgroups, and how are all of our subgroups performing relative to the state goal.
Even if we have an N under 20?
We'll get all the data, we can disaggregate it and look and figure out, do we have an N count? So we get all of the raw data, and then when we look at, okay, let's count how many students in this building, we can see, do we have an N count? If we don't have an N count of 20, we will not get a score for that. If we have an N count over 20, we will.
And this is, you know, under NCLB, we used to say it was a forced march. Whether you agree with it or not, that's the law of the land, you have to go with it, and I understand that. So it is interesting to me, and it is counterintuitive to me when we talk about diversity, that I would then potentially be investing, I'm targeting something, I'm investing to drive certain groups above the average. I find that a little bit disconcerting, so.
I guess
understand what you're saying. I think you're saying that there's a group that we have an N count of greater than 20.
Right.
Performing higher than our building average.
Right.
And we have a number of groups performing well below.
Right.
We're still going to take resources and invest in, because this group is already performing higher than our building average. It has to meet their average because they have a higher target.
Correct.
I think as we say, you're going to end up taking money that you may put towards students who are below the building average, and you're going to put it towards the group of students that are already above.
I find that troubling. Yeah. Other question, which is not to be answered here, but is important, which is, I don't know the actual percentages of 1, 2, 3, and 4. From
I can tell you that.
probably it's in your slide.
It's not, but I can tell you money I can get.
Yeah, let's take a moment for that.
So Title IV is the newest federal grant that we get as a district, and this is a grant where it's about having a well-rounded classroom. So the parameters for that grant are much more open-ended in how you can utilize those funds. We received approximately $21,000 and some change in Title IV this year. In Title III, which is for English language learners. So it's specifically dedicated to language proficiency. We receive about, I think it's like $56,000.
76, keep going.
In Title II funding, we receive approximately, I want to say about $250,000, maybe a little bit more than that. We use that for class size reduction and also for some STEM activities. And Title I, we receive approximately $300,000 change from Title I, and we as a district utilize those funds primarily for literacy support at the elementary level. That's where we designate the dollars, and it's used to hire instructional assistants who work with children at the elementary level on different reading skills and things that they may need.
Trying to be heretical here, but it's $750,000 ballpark, I wrote it down exactly, but it's $750,000 we covered. It's just interesting to know what will we need to spend to achieve these goals versus what do we get for that program. I'm not saying we disengage from the federal programs.
Good.
What?
Good.
But it is interesting to know what the consequences are. There are districts that have disengaged.
I might say disengage if it eliminates all the PSSA taxes.
It doesn't.
Okay.
That's a state issue.
Well, it's a
Federal
state
issue.
issue that you, yes.
Yeah, okay, never mind.
I have a question. One of the subgroups, I think, was students with disabilities.
Mhm.
Do they differentiate between learning disabilities, physical disabilities, other health impaired?
It's any student who has an IEP who takes the PSSA. So it excludes students with a GIEP.
Right.
Only students with an IEP who take the PSSA in that particular subgroup. So we have students with an IEP who take the alternative assessment, the PASA. They're not counted in that particular subgroup for growth. All right, ready? So Pennsylvania developed a new public-facing report card called the Future Ready PA Index. And these are the guiding principles that they established in developing this report card based on feedback they had gotten. They did some feedback tours across the state. So one of the things is measure. So we don't want to just look at one test score. We need to look at more. They wanted transparency around performance of all students. That's why we have all the disaggregated groups and subgroups now. Clear and accessible presentation of the data, which you'll see some screenshots of what their presentation is of that data, and providing to use it as a tool for continuous improvement, so that districts can use it to help think about what do we need to do. So those are the guiding principles in creating this particular tool. This is a screenshot of what the first page looks like. So you see 3 sections. So the section on the left with the keystone, that is a section for student achievement or state assessment measures. So that's where PSSA, PBOS, and those scores and results will fall in that category. The middle section that looks like the little line graph is the on-track measures. That is looking at on-track performance in 2 key grades, reading in grade 3 and math in grade 7. And then also looking at English language proficiency in that particular category. And then the section on the right is the stack of books, is the college and career readiness section. And there are a lot of things that fall in there, and I will show you those. So the 3 sections, here are a list of the measures that are in the section. So the state achievement measures, we have the PSSA, Keystone, we have the PBOS, or the growth, and we have advanced on PSSA and Keystone. So if you remember on the SPP, there was a section on the student performance that you could earn. So one of the things, extra credit, was the number of students that were advanced on the PSSA or the Keystone. So you no longer earn extra credit, but it falls in this category, and it will give you, we will get a number or that will show us what percentage of our kids are advanced on TSA or Keystone relative to whatever grade levels that school represents.
I'm just curious why grade 3 reading, grade 7 math have the measures.
It's a great question. So there's a lot of research that supports those two grades as really pivotal grades for learning in those particular subject areas. So, for example, the probability of a student graduating from high school is directly linked to their reading performance in 3rd grade.
Seriously.
Yes. And math performance, there's a pivotal year in math where you think about 7th grade math and you're going to transition over to algebra and more complicated math. Math learning in 7th grade is pivotal for your performance in more complex mathematics as you go. So
Interesting. I mean, given that way back when we didn't test like all the time for everybody, that it was 5th and 8th grade that.
Well, with 5th and 8th grade, because those were typically the end point of grade level bands. So many elementary schools are K-5, and then
So it had nothing to do with.
No. And then 11th grade, because you're not going to test your seniors, so 11th grade. So that was really why it was 5th and 8th, for the end point of those grade bands or grade configurations.
But after many years of paying attention, grade 3, first half of the year is learning to read, see, listen to read. And the second half of the year is reading to learn. So my question is, where are they testing grade 3? Is that at the end of the year?
It's in the spring, and I would actually counter that and tell you that you're always learning to read and reading to learn. You're never doing one or the other, especially once you get, maybe in 1st grade, you're learning to read, and then.
I hear you say it, but, you know, that there seems to be a transitional point for children where they're reading, they're getting the words together, and now the second half, they're really understanding the concepts. I've seen it in my children, I've seen others, like, yeah, I'm not an educator. So I wonder where the testing is happening. So it's in the spring.
In the spring. It
So,
will be
you know,
the PSA.
so
Yeah. Or a local measure. So the option, and I'll explain this a little bit further, that you have options in the district to decide, determine your assessments there. So on-track measures also include the English language proficiency. And from college and career readiness, we've got our graduation rate, our new career readiness benchmark. We have industry-based learning competencies. So that does not just mean MBIT and credentials that our students can earn in MBIT. It also means industry-based credentials that kids could earn in the district. So for example, we have students in our business department who become Microsoft certified. That counts as an industry-based credential. So that gives us some information in this particular category. We as a district will really be looking at, are there other industry-based credentials that in our courses that we offer here in the district that we could offer to students. CPR is another one. We have a CPR course, or a course that students can get CPR certification. That counts as an industry-based credential. And then the AP, International Baccalaureate, there's college courses, dual enrollment, all of those things also count in the college and career readiness. And then post-secondary transition, that is a measure in college and career readiness that we as a district do not actually gather the data for. The state is collecting that data and reporting it for us. So they're responsible for gathering that data. When you look at this, you'll notice that there are some items that have a double asterisk and some that are underlined. So anything that is underlined is a new indicator. We haven't had it before. And anything that has the double asterisk is a federal accountability measure. So the things that don't have that are going to be reported, but they're not for federal accountability. So they'll be on the Future Ready PA Index, but they're not going to be part of if we've met the federal government's requirements that the state has set in their plan and has been approved by the U.S. Department. About that, yes.
Credentials won't be part of the federal accountability,
Correct.
but if somebody does CPR classes, is it worth them reporting into school for any reason?
Well, they have to earn their credentials approved by us. So, and it will be reported on the Future Ready Index. It just won't be reported by the state, the federal government.
like the American Heart Association, is that one of the ones?
Is your question if someone gets it outside of
Yeah,
school?
outside of school, yeah, but do you even?
My understanding is it needs to be part of your
Yeah,
school.
that makes sense.
I have a question also. How impacted are we, if at all, by the number of parents who are opting their children out of the SSA or standardized testing?
So that impacts us in one of the ways that we are looking at our scores with PSSA. We have to have a 95% participation rate on the state assessment. If we do not have a 95% participation rate, anything below that, it affects what our proficiency level is. So basically, any number below that 95% automatically counts as not proficient. And so it impacts the score. So there is an impact in that. That is not necessarily represented in here in any of these particular data, but that's something that we as a district need to make sure that we're in checking.
Can you give me any idea of what the numbers have been like the past couple of years?
Well, Barry would have an idea
Well,
of
we do
this.
that, we had a couple of schools this year.
We did.
impacted By, being below the 95% participation rate. So
So that has happened.
their proficiency rate is going to show lower than what is actually scored by the students.
Your cat car, so?
No.
Pardon?
Oh,
And I assume they're elementary schools, Barry?
Yeah, I think they were all.
yes, I believe they were.
I thought Richmond Middle was.
Did have it below 95%.
Yeah.
They may have been, we looked at this, they haven't
Well, maybe that's-
really given us the data yet.
No, they haven't.
No, maybe that was the year before, maybe.
Yeah,
All right, thanks for that.
sure. Any other questions about this? I'm going to go through each section as well.
Yeah, it's just, it is, I think it goes back to that idea that at 10 and 20, some of our schools are the district program. So every child is part of the school they attend. So when we have a district program for some disability or some special needs, that's how we get that school up probably closer end of whatever minimum end is. And other schools won't have anything in that category, I imagine.
Well, it depends on how they're attributed. So students are attributed to, typically to their home school. So that's something that you can speak on that. You do the attribution. So district level classes, they're in the school where they are.
Yeah, so where we have district level classes, even though student, they attend, let's say.
So the ABA class,
elementary,
right?
Right, so that student is attributed to the school where they have their program, not the school that would be their home attending school. Used to be the opposite way.
That's what I'm
But they shifted that, yeah.
saying.
And then the other thing was, Mary Ann, yes, we had almost 200, last year, opt-out, in K-8, not counting Keystone, yes.
And we don't typically have as many opt-out systems as we do.
Not for the first program, they opt out for.
And those are for, the reason that, you know, reason?
They do not anymore. Officially, the state says it's only for religious exemption.
Right.
However, they can now say, I just don't want the child to get tested, they added another bubble on the report, student report, says, student not count.
I just wondered because I wonder if there's a internal correlation between the diversity groups they're looking at, and you could get a correlation already that would drive that number lower, which would then say you're underperforming, even though because it could be a religious exemption. You'd have this counter.
Yeah, they count, religious exemption counted.
You understand my point, that if a certain religious grouping chose not to, but was also predominant in a subcategory,
Right.
we go, exactly, we should fill that up there.
So, the first section, state achievement measures, it's very similar to what we knew as the SPP. So, the PSSA and Keystone Achievement, so the percentage of students that were proficient or advanced, as well as the PBOS growth. And it also looks at the percentage of students who are advanced, and that's included but not extra credit, and that is not an accountability measure for the federal government. All of these data will be disaggregated by subgroups. So as a community member, a parent going into this Future Ready PA Index, you will be able to drill down into the individual subgroups and look and see the data. So here's a snapshot of what it will look like. So you'll start to see color coding a lot with things. So keep in mind, you've got the blue, the green, and the red. So blue, it means exceed, green means meet, and red means does not meet. You will see in the data that there will always be, with the state achievement measures, there'll be a couple scores. So there'll be, here's what the state score is, and what the interim goal is. Here's where your score is, and here's where you're doing towards the target. So you'll see multiple scores to be able to look at growth. What's different about the Future Ready PA Index from the school performance profile is a school will not get a single score. So there won't be a one score like you can remember before, like, oh, a school got a 92.5 or whatever the score was. Math, I think you get 110, 107 if you got all the extra credit too. You no longer will have a single score. It is looking at measure by measure by measure to see where schools are, and the color coding, which is part of the state work to make it more for folks, is looking at that color coding across all measures. So what you have here is the 3 different assessments. So English language arts, math, and science. So you'll have a box for each of them. So folks will be able to click on within that box and disaggregate down to the subgroups. So it will originally show you just the all student performance, but then you can disaggregate to look at subgroups when you look at the information. So that is the student achievement or the state achievement measures. The middle section that we looked at, the on-track measures, this is where the grade 3 reading and grade 7 math are. You, as a district, we have an option to use a local measure that meets very specific criteria that the state sets for you. So as a district, we decided last year when we had the option to look at a local measure, the criteria and everything that we had to do to make sure the measure met the criteria. For this first year, we were not going to try to get a local assessment administered in the time frame that we would have needed to have it administered to report it. So in the absence of a local measure, what will be reported for grade 3 reading will be the grade 3 PSSA reading score. What will be reported for grade 7 math will be the grade 7 math PSSA score.
We would own the cost of that.
Yes, if we decide to do a local measure, we own the cost of it. So there's many factors there that we need to really fully vet and think about before we go down that path.
With time, classroom time, but they still have to take the PSSAs too?
Yes.
So then it would be, forget about the cost, administrative cost, it's yet another classroom cost.
Correct. So the English language proficiency, that score will be based on the interim growth target and attaining that proficiency on time within that 6-year range. Chronic absenteeism as well. That will be reported as that attendance category. So this is what that will look like. Very similar to the last screenshot that you saw. You'll see a box for each of the designated areas, and you'll see the score and how they're doing towards the part, if it's one that has one. The college and career readiness section, again, we have the graduation rate, which is a federal accountability measure. The 4-year is the federal accountability. On the Future Ready Index, it will report both the 4 and the 5. The career readiness, which is tracking of career learning beginning in grade 3. So so what we are required to do by the state is gather evidence of students having shown that they've completed activities or lessons or assessments or something related to the college and career readiness standards. There are 4 strands of those standards. And they need to have by between their 3rd grade year and their 11th grade year, 20 pieces of evidence. And it's divided into grade bands, grades 3 through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 11. In the grades 3 through 5 grade band, they need to complete 6 pieces of evidence, 2 each year. In grades 6 through 8, it's another 6 pieces of evidence, 2 each year. And then 9 through 11, it's 8 pieces of evidence for a total of 20.
Can you give me an example of piece of evidence?
Absolutely. Yep, so an example of a piece of evidence at the high school level is completing one of the college career surveys in Nottingham. An example at the middle school level as part of our careers course that we have and we do in the middle school with our arts rotation. Students are doing mock interviews. They're learning about, thinking about careers, interest in careers, understanding different careers. So that counts as evidence where we collect data on, you know, like they might do a checklist or an exit ticket to an activity to give feedback on what they learned about something. Another example, ninth grade could be a visit, the MBIT visit, the district does a presentation for all ninth graders, and then the ninth graders fill out a quick little exit slip or something. The challenge is we have to actually collect the data. And then an example in grades 3 through 5, in our elementary school, our guidance counselors push into classrooms and do lessons. So for example, in 5th grade, our guidance counselors do a conflict resolution lesson, which fits in one of the career strands. So after that conflict resolution lesson, they do a little exit ticket to collect the evidence, and then we have to compile all that evidence and keep it in storage on hand, and then we report it every year through the PIM system. But what will happen, how they will monitor this particular accountability measure is when the assessment period is for PSA, mostly PSA, and maybe does as well. A state monitor comes to monitor assessments. They do periodically. So when they come to monitor the PSA assessment, make sure that we're following the rules and everything, they'll also say, I'd like you to pick out 5 8th graders and show me their career readiness evidence. And so then we need to produce that evidence for them to see that you actually met it.
You won't be surprised when I tell you that this is idiocracy, bureaucracy, and inflexible bureaucracy. So my question to you is really simple on this, which is evidence. I kind of look down the line at Matt and say, Chromebook surveys, they can do this on the Chromebook, log in and do it, and we can use those records. We're not pushing paper around because moronic is the word that comes to mind that we're going to collect paper and then have to pay other people to do data entry. And
we are not doing that. We're using Performance Tracker. As a Performance Tracker is our system that we use for most of our assessments and tracking that data.
And how do we get it in there if they're filling out the survey?
They do a bubble sheet and it's scanned.
This was stupid. Okay.
Small. But a lot of those things are things that they were always doing.
Yes.
So it's not an additional. I try not to add.
Yeah.
I hear you, and that's where I'm, you know, look, in my field, I have regulations for tracking and monitoring of physicians and whatnot. And what we wind up doing is we wind up using cards, they slide through, and then they type in a pin and they're done. And I'm not far afield from that to try and say, how do we do that here? Because then
We, last late winter, early spring, did a lot of really careful conversation and thinking about how do we collect this data. The exact same points that you're making, we don't want to have paper all over the place. We need to be able to associate evidence with a student all the way through their career with us. So the best way at the moment that we could do it without spending a lot of money on a new system, because of course with career readiness came a lot of education companies saying, oh, we have the software to help you do this. And we did a couple different options and decided ultimately this time, keeping with the system we use in Performance Tracker, and then of course Naviance as a tool that we collect data in, that was the best way to do this. In a most secure way. It made us have to, for like, the guidance lessons in the past, they may have done like an exit slip of getting some feedback from kids, but they didn't record it anywhere.
is
So
there
now it has
any
to be
research on their end when they develop this that says there's value in what they're doing? Is there any, or is it all anecdotal and?
So there's value in the standards themselves. In the career readiness standards and ensuring that students are learning those standards and helping them in making choices for when they graduate from high school. So there's definitely validity in that. As far as the way to collect it and measure it,
And the
I can't
numbers?
speak to that. You know, the baseline that was set for this, which is 93%, they only set that after the data they collected this spring because you had to do it this past spring. So it was new data and then we got the benchmark. The other things in this category, we've already talked a little bit about the industry credentials, the rigorous courses of study. So for example, next year when we have dual enrollment in our business, computer, information technology, where we have 4 courses that are dual enrollment with Finding Mercy University, that will count and be a benefit for us. And then of course the post-secondary transition that the state is collecting for us.
Does taking an AP course count or passing an AP course count?
I'm gonna have to check on that. I'm not sure if it's taking or if it's the test. Or if it's test
Before, when the SPP, it was scoring.
a 3 or better.
5, yeah.
Yeah. So it's probably very similar.
You can load these things with kids that should not be in class.
Correct.
And you've only have to take.
Well, the other question I have, which is the certifications. Students have to pay for the certifications. Okay, so if you want to take the Microsoft test, you have to pay for it. We don't pay for it as a district. So already there's a bias in these numbers, which is just disgraceful.
Same.
AP.
I absolutely agree, which, you know, it's great to sit here in a well-funded, economically off district, and you sit there and you look and you go, yeah, in a district that isn't, that has kids who are bright, who's paying for those tests? And they're not taking them, it's a sham. The whole thing's a sham.
So this is again what that section will look like, very similar. You'll have a box for each of the particular areas and you'll see your scores. And where we are relative to the state.
And I'm looking at this great little website, they're gonna put up this website. Who do they think is gonna use this website and toward what end? Do they think the public's gonna use it?
Yes, this is the new public facing report card.
That's fine, that's what do they think that people,
Happens to the old data that's already been up there.
so it's been.
From the SPP,
Yeah, from the Department of Education, they already have data on the schools tracking it. I was looking at it. That was the SPP.
that is the SPP, yeah.
That's still gonna be historical data be available, or they always update it every year and then it goes away?
Well, they would update it every year, so now it won't be updated publicly. They're still collecting the SPP data for principal and teacher evaluation, but it's no longer public.
I'd like the way it's.
Right, so how the scores and ratings work. So it will be a school score, so we will not get a district page of all of these measures. It's by school. Again, most of the measures are disaggregated, not all of them. So like career readiness, for example, is not disaggregated by. There will always be a comparison to the statewide target or goal. And there will be a growth based on that baseline goal. So most of them, as I said earlier, was 2015, but some of them are a little bit later. And there will be an interim or a yearly target. So did you meet that interim target? And are you continuing to grow? You will see growth. And that will be for the federal accountability measures that you'll see the color coding in the arrow. So blue means it exceeds the statewide goal, green meets progress target, red does not meet the goal, the statewide goal, the progress target, and again, it won't be a single score. The arrows will be an up arrow or a down arrow. So for example, you could be blue, but have a down arrow, which means you exceeded the statewide goal, but your school's progress was not going up, but going down. You could have a red circle that has a red upward arrow that means you didn't meet the goal, but you're making progress. So up is good, down is bad, blue is great, green is good, red is not good. It is a little bit confusing.
Look at it and try to sort of color as part of this, they would, it's good or bad.
And again, the subgroups here, we've seen those a couple of times, the N count is 20 for the school. So this is a little hard to see, the best screenshot that we could get. So you see, when you look at the little box here, you see 3 circles, a blue, a green, and a red in that order. Every single accountability measure that would have these colored circles will have them, and will have an empty circle for one that's not supposed to be colored in. So when you see that first row up there, you see a green arrow pointing down in the middle. So the non-colored in blue circle and the non-colored in red circle will still be there, but you focus on whatever the solid color is to tell you what's what.
So there's really 6 options for everyone. There's
Yes.
a blue arrow up, a blue arrow down, a red arrow up, a red arrow down, red
Yes.
and green. So, and that is close to confusion. The ones that you're not scored on, you still see.
Right, which makes it a little confusing, because you see the colored circle, but it's not filled in. So we'll have to make sure, and they have, you know, pop-up boxes and things that explain everything to people as well. So I talked a little bit earlier about the designations and classifications. So we use comprehensive support and improvement and targeted support and improvement. Comprehensive support and improvement is automatically the bottom 5% of Title I schools in the state, and any high school, doesn't have to be a school that receives Title I funds, that has less than a 67% graduation rate. They are automatically comprehensive support. As a district, we will not be comprehensive support. We don't meet that criteria. Targeted support and improvement is any school, not just a Title I school, this is a little bit different than what No Child Left Behind was. There were certain categories in No Child Left Behind that you could become school improvement if you were a Title I school in this particular category. So in this case, any school that meets this comprehensive support improvement parameters at the subgroup level. So if your L's are not meeting where they need to be, you could be identified as targeted support improvement. What that means is, as a district or a school, you develop your own improvement plan, you monitor what you're doing. No one from the state is going to come and, you know, work with you to set up a plan or come in and do anything. It's local control. So the district determines, okay, what do we need to do? Right. What do we need to do to support this group of students in this subgroup that didn't make the goal? So before I move on to implications, any other questions about the Future Ready Index? I can tell you're all ready to see it when it comes up.
I love how they say they try to make it easier, but it's not intuitive.
I think some of it, once you see it, it probably will be a little bit, like, it'll make sense.
I mean, the color coding is,
Yeah.
the arrows, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see any of this as being, it's such a broad brush, it's just actionable. You know, you look for smart, everybody in business, right? You have to make your goals, have to be smart, at the same time.
Part of that's actionable.
Yeah, exactly, at the same time.
Right, so implications for us as a district. So we'll need to show growth as a district via both the state and individual interim targets that we have. We'll need to look at our performance of our subgroups because they could lead to targeted focus. You know, the English language proficiency, our economically disadvantaged, our IEP students, and also by ethnicity. We also, as we talked a little bit about career readiness, we really track that existing career readiness, and it is an additional responsibility. We've done our very best to make it as little as possible for folks, but it is an additional responsibility. Our action steps, things that we need to think about and possibly do once we see the data, because we haven't really seen the data yet. Right now, based on the data that we do have, we're making, you know, looking at possibilities and guesses, but we really haven't seen it yet. We have a preliminary view of it at this point. We may need to look at some professional development for staff with supporting some of our subgroups. You know, our current work with diversity and equity can help us with that. How to better support English language learners students with IEP. We may need to decide whether or not we want to look at an on-track measure. It could potentially be something that we're already using. And if it meets the criteria, we could consider using it. And we may ultimately decide not to do that. We haven't made that decision yet. I think as an action step, one of the things we do need to do that is good for our students and not just for this purpose, but continue to explore dual enrollment opportunities for students and also the possibility of other industry certifications that our students could earn while they're with us. That's good for kids. It would be beneficial to them.
Doesn't that lead to things like accelerating the kids and stuff that make those enrollments happen?
For dual enrollment, not necessarily, because many of those, like our core business courses, they're already courses that we offer, and it was matching them to working with Gwen and Mercy University, matching them with the course that.
I was
matches
thinking
theirs.
college courses, so, okay, I see what you're saying.
Although some districts do also offer college
I know
courses,
they do,
we
yeah.
at the moment do not do that, but that could be something we could look at as well. And then, of course, continuing to finalize our career readiness tracking, because that was brand new last year, and we're still getting all those pieces in place and making sure it's ready to go. Questions? Additional questions? Or comments?
I want to thank you. That was to me, a wonderful presentation of a very complex thing. And I also appreciate your mindfulness of, here's what we're already doing within the district, and we're not going to duplicate, or we're not going to take valuable classroom time for additional assessments that may not be necessary. So I really appreciate how you looked at this with our specific needs and strengths in this district, and then melding it with this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Questions?
Don't take my negativity directed at you. It's
Oh, I
your-
know. I know exactly where it was directed.
So, yeah, I think that the prime here is that the skill level that we've had to dedicate to doing this so much better applied to things that have direct impact.
Any other questions or comments? No?
So to give you a teaser for the next academic standards meeting,
Okay, my little.
in October, we'll actually have 3 agenda items, and 2 of them are action items. One will potentially be, parts of it might be an action item, but we'll see where that one goes. So we do have a student who is requesting independent study. So that will be one of the items that we'll talk about, and it's in world language. And the second is adding a elective in our English department with diversity and literature course. And the third item for the evening, which is more at this point informational, is our plan to move forward with math acceleration in the middle school and actually being able to offer algebra to 7th graders who are ready for algebra. So Julie Eastburn will be here in October to really talk about a lot of the legwork that she's been doing, how we're going to determine assessments and data to really determine which students are truly ready for algebra in 7th grade, because we have kids that are. She's already been working with the math enrichment in the elementary school to build in, if you think about the progression of math courses, before Algebra 1, you typically have pre-algebra content. So working into the math enrichment program that we offer at the elementary school, particularly for our 6th graders, the pre-algebra content that we want to make sure kids know, so that if they are eligible for algebra, they have that background and are ready for it. And so you'll get more
I
information
know that's
about that.
something, but ultimately that means then that you need to add a course in high school, because they're going to reach calculus that much faster, correct?
So it would mean that they'd have more options of taking other courses in high school, whether it's in math area
No,
or.
it's not a
any other
graduation
area.
requirement.
Yeah, it won't impact graduation requirements.
No, I don't mean as a graduation requirement, but there may be people who would want to continue in math. I mean, there are districts that
This is-
offer.
So they would need to
Right,
go-
because we get the people who go, well, shouldn't we offer language XYZ level 5 because my kid already is, you know.
So in math, we have a lot of electives. So if the student finishes with calculus in their junior year and wants to continue with math, they can take AP Computer Science, AP Computer Science Principles, they can take stats. There's a lot of options that they could continue taking math courses.
Yeah, a lot of kids go drop their language to take math earlier, but we'll talk about that next month.
So Julie will be here to kind of explain what that is and where we're moving forward. And our goal is that for the start of the 1920 school year, we'll be able to offer Algebra 1 for 7th graders in middle school.
And you can pre-warn her, I'm gonna ask if she's gonna get rid of the onerous forms you have to fill out as proof that you're ready to accelerate and stuff that currently force on students.
Okay, I'll let her know that.
Yeah, because I have those at home.
All right. So that's the little teaser for the next
One
time.
piece, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything further?
You know, this week, we got to spend time at the 2 middle schools. And while it's a great celebration of the building, I think that even the 3 of you here, you know, it's really about what goes on in the building. I think one of the teachers said it, one of the principals said it, the first night, I forget it. Tim said it the first night, which was, it's really, and I had said before, talking about history of buildings, which is, it's really just a structure until you put people and students and teachers in it, and then it becomes a school. I'm excited about the buildings. I think the buildings really give us the capability to do almost anything we want within those buildings for those things. So structure is a structure, but I think the 3 of you really, you know, assistant superintendent, K-12, and also experienced, you know, administrator of school district. You know, it's really you guys and Dr. Frazier really, you know, putting into the buildings the carbon part of it, the people part of it. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
For all the brief I gave it, I appreciate the work you do.
Great teams in this building, both administrators and the teachers, and, you know, and I can say we had a meeting this afternoon with a group of teachers that was about our professional development committee that meets, and the middle school folks that were there really commented how, you know, we've merged 3 buildings into 2 with staff, and they're really commenting how people are, like, they're getting along, you know, it's really been a positive experience.
It's gonna up everybody's game too, which is good.
Yeah, it's been
really
a really
I
positive.
think the PLC's easier with 2 buildings versus 3.
Well, thank you for that. That was very, very kind of you. I appreciate that.
So on that happy note, this meeting is adjourned.